This project is called Color Burst. We will be using our newly learned watercolor techniques. You will need an 11 by 15 inch watercolor paper, ruler, pencil, eraser, watercolors, a paintbrush, and water. The first step is to draw your animal. You will need to print out a picture like I have of the animal you want to do for reference. Make it big enough to fill your paper. You do not want a small animal. This is the focus of our entire picture. So I am making sure that my animal goes off of the page. It reaches or is very, very close to the top of my paper and the very bottom of my paper. You also want to make sure that your animal reaches at least the center of your paper, if not all the way over to the other side. Step 2. Add details to the background. I looked up images of what would go with my animal. The elephant lives in the safari, so I found trees that would grow in the safari, birds that may be flying up in the air, or the grass, and maybe some animals in the background. Look at what your animal and what their habitat would be. Here's a tip when working with watercolors. Your pencil lines should be so lightly drawn that it's kind of hard for you to see it. If you're drawing dark, it may show through your watercolors. Step 3. Draw a 7 by 11 inch rectangle in the middle of your paper. I am using a ruler to go in 2.5 inches on each side. Then I draw a line to connect it. This is to make my 7 by 11 inch rectangle. As you can see, I goofed up a little bit. You do not need the line to go across the animal. It actually needs to look like it's going behind it where the animal's coming out. So to skip this step of erasing your line, just do not draw it onto your animal. Step 4. Watercolor only the animal and inside of your rectangle. Now, you need to go back to the video before this if you need tips on your watercolor techniques. I am just blending and mixing my colors together. In the sky, in this background at this moment, I am using a wet on wet technique. So I wet the paper before I add the color so it blends together better. But again, check out the other video on the techniques and how to use the watercolors. Notice that the only part I am painting is inside of the rectangle. Everything on the outside is going to be black and white, except for the animal that I'll be painting in just a second. As I am painting my animal, I'm referring back to the picture of what I used to draw the animal to see where the shadows would be and where the darker colors should be. So to lighten your colors, you're just going to add more water. To darken it, you're going to add a little bit of black. Black is a very powerful color, so you do not need a lot of it. Just mix it on the palette to the side and then try it out first. Watercolors are a very tricky new skill to learn. They flow where they want to, you don't have much control over it, and it's something that you need to practice. So this is a project that we're starting watercolors with. Do not expect a result like mine. You are just going to do your best and practice this new skill. Notice that as I'm painting, I always start with the lighter colors and start with like a light wash over what I'm working on, and then I go back and add more of the darker colors or a different color that's going to deepen it. Like in the blue elephant, I will go back and deepen the color with purple. Have you noticed that I am jumping around from different parts of the picture? I'm not going in any sort of order. Well, I'm doing this for a reason, because I do one section at a time and then let that section dry before I paint the next section that might be touching it. So I jump from the sky down to the grass, over to the elephant, just to let things dry in between, because if the watercolors were to touch, it's going to pick up the paint where it's still wet and it's going to spread. It's going to mess up your painting, and you don't want that after you've worked so hard. It's done that to me a few times in here. If you can catch those mistakes, I try to fix it by just taking it out or kind of blend it in. Your best option when working with watercolors is to have patience and let things dry before moving on to the next step. The final step of this project, step number 5, is to outline it with a permanent marker. I will be using the thicker marker to outline the rectangle so it stands out a little bit more. And then I will go back in with the fine point Sharpie marker to outline the rest of the picture. I'm doing the outside, so we have a black and white design. And then I will also still outline the picture on the inside of the rectangle as well as the animal. It'll just sharpen up our image a little bit. Feel free to go back and add more details to your drawing as you go. And my project is done. I hope you enjoy making this project and really get to try using those watercolor skills. I'll see you next time.